for Tuesday, May the 1st, 2012 to order. Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to note that we have a full contingent here tonight, staff and council. We're going to take the agenda, it's revised, I put it more in order of interest and related items. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as revised.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for Tuesday, May 1st, 2012 as revised.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, we have a special presentation tonight. We have Gary Hankinson here from the county. I keep messing it up. He is the deputy executive. Ken Ware brought up the point that he had been approached about disincorporation as a distinct possibility of what some people were thinking of. So Gary is going to talk about what services the county offers its county people, and then he'll take off, and then we'll have the talk about the disincorporation impacts and methodology. So, Mr. Hankinson, if you'd like to step forward. There's no microphone. We're recording on this.
My voice is pretty booming, I think. So,
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, folks. I am Gary Hawkinson, often pronounced and spelled incorrectly, so I'm quite used to it after all these years. So, the mayor asked me a couple weeks back if I would come and just talk about the services that the county would provide to you if you happen by chance to become part of the county rather than a city. And as he mentioned, when I'm done here, I'll be halfway home while you folks are still talking about disincorporation. So that'll be your topic tonight. So I made a little list of a few things that I thought would be of value to residents of the county and residents of Gold Bar should you become residents of the county. Your sales tax would stay identical as to what it is now. Animal control would be a service that your city is providing you now. We would take that over from the county's perspective. The water and sewer is a little bit problematic for us. We don't have those types of services, and in speaking with the mayor, I know he's been working on some other issues to get that taken over by another private company. So you would have to figure out what to do with that on your own. That wouldn't be something that the county would provide. And of course you have the fire district right down the street, so nothing would change from that perspective. I think the four most important things that you all would consider and be concerned about is clearly your roads, anything that Public Works can provide for you, snow removal, those types of things. And we certainly have a staff that we can provide those services for you. It doesn't put a burden on us in any way, shape, or form. In fact, Public Works Director gave me a long list of things that you could expect from the Public Works Department if you had become part of the county, talking about overlays and snow removal, ditch and storm maintenance, those types of things. So all the services that we provide to unincorporated Snohomish County, we would provide to you folks as well. One of the drawbacks there, I would think, from your perspective is you would then have to pay a road tax, which is about 6%, and that's included in your property tax bill, and I'll get to property taxes here near the end. Second thing I think you'd be concerned about is law enforcement. Sergeant Casey and his guys are giving you guys great service right now under a contract basis. That would go away if you became unincorporated Snohomish County, and you would be served just by whatever the beat car was that happened to be in the area taking care of that. The calls would probably be limited to, life safety, property, that type of thing on an on-call basis. So you wouldn't get the good service that I'm pretty sure you're getting now. And that would be, of course, you wouldn't be paying for that service, but you wouldn't be getting it either. Land use is going to be a big concern. You would fall then under the county zoning rather than the zoning that you have here in Gold Bar. What we try to do if a city were to disincorporate, we would try to match your zoning with the county zoning as best we could, but clearly they're not always the same fit, but we try to find like property sizes to make that work. I think personally a drawback would be you wouldn't have control over the land use issues anymore, other than, of course, you could come to county council meetings and those types of things, but you don't have the control that you have when you get to come here every Tuesday night. And of course, the biggest thing I think that anyone would want to know about would be property taxes. And, you know, my sort of rudimentary looking at it, just trying to make a guesstimate of what it would cost you if you did become part of the county is, I think you would pay more in property tax to be part of the county than you do now. Not much, probably somewhere between 5 and 10%, but clearly more than what you're paying now. And a big part of that is a 6% road tax, in which you get the county road services back again. So those are the biggest things that I could think of that would affect you if you became county residents. If you decide, if these folks decide that that's something that you want to do, then we're clearly happy to come out and present a better, maybe not better because I'm so eloquent, right? But a better, a longer presentation, a more in-depth presentation on what those services would be. And I know the sheriff's office would like to come out and have a chat with you about that as well. So if the time comes, we're happy to do whatever we can to make it easier for you throughout that process. We also have the ability to sort of put together an online property tax comparison, the taxes that you pay now, the fees that you pay now, those types of things. Not something that we wanted to do for tonight, but if you get serious about it, then we're happy to do that for you so you can kind of look and just compare it for yourself. And I think really that's all I have to address. I'd be happy to answer any questions from council, the mayor, or from the folks in the audience.
If it's okay with the council, we can do this sort of town hall meeting style. Okay, so, let's let the citizens go first, if that's okay. So if there's someone who'd like to ask a question, would you just please stand and get recognized, and then you can ask the question.
How about the city utility taxes, would that go away?
Well, you wouldn't have, I guess I'd have to let the mayor answer that one. I don't think you'd have a utility anymore, or maybe you would. I don't
He's
know who would be
talking
taking it
about
over.
the telephone tax, cable tax, this tax, that tax. Yes, since it's not a city, those would go away.
Right.
Is there equivalent, does the county have utility taxes on gas and electricity and such like that?
We do, so it probably would be close to a wash for you in that regard. Sure.
Yes, don't we have the option of creating a water district instead of turning it over to private company?
Again, that would be a question for these folks to answer, but I'm sure that you do.
Another one is, notice that 45% of our revenue budget is contract with the sheriff's department. Why do we have to have that? Suppose we simply cancel and aggregate that contract. Laws will continue to get enforced. Why do we have to spend $277,000 a year?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not one of your elected
Let me
officials, so
repeat
they'd
the
have to
question.
answer that one for you.
This is Ralph Wood. He had two statements. He wanted to know if we could form a water district in lieu of having some other activity take it over. The answer is, I suppose so. There'd be election on that. I doubt there would be any difference in anything, but that's doable. And the next one he's asked, why do we pay over $250,000 to the sheriff's department for services, and what happens if we don't pay that to the sheriff? So, Sergeant Casey, do you want to take that, or, because I could ride along, but.
As an incorporated city, if you don't pay those to the sheriff is obligated to provide life-saving, emergency type services only. And so someone, life-saving and, protected from bodily harm, that sort of thing. Somebody's being assaulted in progress, somebody's being, their life is threatened and they're really in danger at that particular time, the sheriff's office has to respond. For cold incidents, your burglaries, your car prowls, your stolen cars, things like that, the sheriff's office would not respond unless the city paid a fee for those responses. Unincorporated. If you're not incorporated, you get the same service as any other part of or any other citizen in the county. So, and you're not paying that $277,000 contract for that. That's just, those expenses are being covered out of your taxes to the county. So that's how that works. We would provide similar services to what we're providing now, except that we won't be out here. We won't have a police station here. We won't have people dedicated to providing services in Gold Bar or possibly even the Gold Bar region. I don't know. There will be staffing cuts in the region. I don't know what those numbers are. I know for sure my position would be gone. That doesn't mean I lose my job. I just go somewhere else in the county. as far as the other 4 deputies out here, a tremendous demand out of the north and south precinct because their call volume is so much higher, their crime rate is so much higher. So there's a huge demand for those guys to be reassigned to those areas. How many, if any, would be reassigned, I can't answer that right now. They would have to, or, my command staff told me they would need to conduct some sort of a study to try to determine where those people would be best placed. So there'd be a reduction in service if you disincorporate. How severe that reduction would be, I just can't predict at this time.
Maybe
Did that
there's,
answer your question?
Did I understand you to say that you would not respond or get involved for auto theft, home invasion, drug being sold on the school campus, that sort of thing?
Things happening in progress and things that create an emergent need, we respond to. Cold incidents, we would not be responding to. We would-
Such as a car stolen yesterday is not.
But that would be if the city is still incorporated, but does not have a contract. If the city disincorporates, then yes, we respond to those things out in the county. We provide full police services, but to you as county citizens, our police station would be in Sultan. I don't, unless in some way, somebody was able to afford to continue to provide this facility to us, the sheriff's office isn't gonna buy it, there's no money for that.
So it would be.
Then we would be based in Sultan, not out here. There would be a reduction in staff out here, and so as a result, there'd be a reduction in service just due to having fewer personnel and longer distances. So that's for disincorporation. It doesn't mean we would stop responding to particular kinds of calls. We would only do that if the city, we do that in an incorporated city that doesn't pay for a contract and doesn't have their own police agency. We're obligated under law to handle certain incidents. We would handle those and only those on
Are
an
those
incorporated city.
enumerated someplace?
That specific information you'd have to get from, I would imagine, the undersheriff. He's addressed that before with other contract cities. I don't know if he has here.
Woody, I can summarize a little bit. We have 5 people stationed here in Gold Bar. We would go to 0 people stationed in Gold Bar, most likely, and 2 people stationed in Sultan. So what is being done by 5 people in Gold Bar would be done by 2 people in Sultan. So that's first order, that's the impact.
I think there was somebody in the back. Did you have a question?
I do, so, my name is Bill. So, if you didn't have a contract with the sheriff's department, and we're incorporated, basically we're in the same boat. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was saying, because I know you were saying something about 211,000 going to the sheriff's department, but I'm like, if you want to incorporate it, you still get the same service without the sheriff's department.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But the thing about the sheriff's budget is down $250,000. That's gonna hurt.
The sheriff's gonna lay off or attrition somewhere, either through attrition or layoffs, those positions would disappear. The positions funded by that $277,000 would be gone. So if nobody retires, nobody resigns, then somebody gets laid off. As far as same services, I'm gonna repeat, you'd have a reduction in service. That doesn't mean a reduction in what kind of calls we handle. The biggest reduction you're gonna see is in the number of people we have out here doing it, and so the amount of time and energy we're able to dedicate to any specific investigation here. And then the second reduction is gonna be in the proximity of the officers when you call for help.
I was just making reference to the unincorporated versus you guys, the contract that you're paying.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, if the contract wasn't in place, we'd basically get the same service as an unincorporated city. Correct?
No.
No.
No?
If the contract were not in place, you would not get services for non-emergent calls, period.
Right. And unincorporated is the same, right? Am I wrong on
No,
that?
that's wrong. In unincorporated county, we do respond to non-emergent calls.
Oh, okay.
Within staff limitations,
Okay.
or within staff property. Yes, sir, Ray, you're next.
Nicole, disagree a little bit with what you said. We have a 60-40 contract out here where the city's paying for 40% of the Gold Bar region. The other 2.4 and equivalent portion of his contract is paid for by the county. That would continue as far as, that money would still be there. I owned a house outside of Gold Bar and one inside of Gold Bar about the same value, and my taxes were literally the same, as he pointed out. And the money that we are currently paying into Gold Bar, property tax wise, if we become unincorporated, would be paid to the county, and that would be in their budget for police services amongst other things as well.
No, it would go into
Yes.
the road fund. Because I don't believe our county taxes would increase if we were in the county, because
We pay county taxes and city
I know.
taxes now.
we pay roughly $300 a year city taxes and about $150 a year county taxes is what average house pays.
And we'd pay about $450 county if we disincorporated.
Yeah, but the 300 would be in a road fund.
Money's money.
I know, but they don't hire sheriffs out of the road fund.
If I can clarify, because I talked to my command staff about numbers, I said, can I give the citizens of Gold Bar a prediction on what the staffing numbers would be out here? And they said no. The 60-40 contract that you have with us obligates us to have these three, the county to have their 3 funded positions assigned to this region, the city to have their 2, basically. It's roughly about that kind of a deal. So we're obligated to put 60% of that 60% to this region. Without that contract, the county doesn't have that obligation to put that 60% out here. And what I was bringing up is that there's this tremendous demand from north and south to get a chunk of that 60%, that funding that we put for this region. And I can't guarantee that would remain. And I would imagine a piece of it would, but I don't know how much. So I don't know if it would be all of it or a part of it. And so it's possible it could be 2 deputies, it's possible it could be 3 deputies that stay in the region out here and get added to the East Precinct Patrol. But I don't know, and that's.
Do you know, Randy might know? My thinking is that if we circulate a petition for signatures, this question is going to come up over and over and over again.
Yes.
And the people who hold the petition for signatures need to have the answers to these questions.
Maybe I can help a little bit here, because the sergeant has to be careful he doesn't say too much that his upper bosses will have come back to them. He's obviously talked to the undersheriff about it, but I think the safest thing that you can say is, if you don't have that contract from the sheriff's office, the response times will increase dramatically.
I understand.
Safe to say, okay? Your service levels will not be the same from the sheriff's office, and I'll say that, he's not saying that, but you will not have the same service levels from the sheriff's office that you get now. It's just that simple. And I think if tonight, after the discussion that these folks have on disincorporation, if that's a direction that they want to go, I'm sure that the undersheriff would be happy to come out, talk with you about all of those issues, explain it for you, and tell you exactly what would happen. They weren't ready to really make that statement yet, because they haven't really heard that that's what the decision is. So, but he's offered, he told me to make sure that you folks knew, he'd be glad to come out and have that conversation with you. Okay? Any other questions that I can answer for you?
I got one more. My name's Bill again. I looked up the business tax for me and my wife run, and our business tax would go from 150 to 500. Just want to let anybody that runs a business, that's what our business tax would go up to.
Your business tax would increase from 150 to 500 because of county rules versus city rules.
That's right. Yes. I just want to put that out there in case anybody runs a business.
And that's something I didn't research, but I'd be happy to go back and make sure you're right on that. I don't doubt that you are, but I did not look
I
at
am. I
that.
did my research before I came up here, but
Good.
it was pretty drastic for me. That's why I came here tonight. So.
There's other little impacts, like the recycling. We get weekly recycling for, what is it? I forgot what it is. $4 a month? $3 up now, $4 a month. And without the city contract, if you want recycling, you get it twice a month for $15 a month. So there's a little impact. There's a whole series of things.
Sure.
detail, yes.
Do you mean that would move us to waste management instead of Urbanco?
We'd still
No.
have them, they just charge you instead, and it's 15%.
And just as a side note to that, we're actually renegotiating that contract currently for the whole county, so that may change at some point in time to a different collector, we just don't know yet how that'll all shake out, so.
Okay.
And I have a question. On our water bill, I'm getting a little fed up with the water bills keep going up and up and up. So, if we just incorporate, if we're no longer a city, that means PUD would take over, correct?
Well, we talked about that before you got here, and I don't know that they have.
That's an option,
Yeah.
yes.
Because, I mean, it seems like we're being held hostage by this woman and her minions, and, by suing the city, and this is why our rates go up low. I'm,
No, that's not correct. But-
okay, then inform me, because,
Okay, the water is called an enterprise fund. It's got its own section over here. It's about what, thank you, Woody, it is a little, about $2.2 million a year is what it runs. And that pays for like the new reservoir and maintaining everything, but it's what PUD owned it. Now, if we disincorporate and PUD comes over, the first thing they're gonna do is say, hey, we're gonna bring this up to PUD standards. And we got a bunch of 40-year-old mains in here, and what they've done elsewhere, and what they'll probably do here, your water bill will go up 20 to 30 bucks a month, called a surcharge, to pay for all the improvements. Now, those improvements cost the same whether PUD does it or the city does it 5 years from now. So, that's one thing you'd see. The water bill is totally isolated pretty much from the rest of the city business. So, and the cost increases are simply to cover the cost of maintenance, the cost of new reservoirs, the cost of meeting Department of Health requirements and stuff like that. So it's a fund that historically has been flush, and now with the new reservoir going in, we're gonna see it not as flush as it used to be.
And so the reason I directed that question to him is I'm from the county, and I've been talking about services that we would provide. We don't provide those services, so that would be something that you all would have to take care of here on your own before that happened.
okay.
Yeah, we did look into PUD taking over some years ago, real light duty level.
Okay, I still have another question.
Okay.
With all the attorney's fees that we seem to be paying out as a city
Yeah,
to fight these frivolous lawsuits,
okay.
if we were not a city, then we wouldn't be paying that money,
That
correct?
is correct.
Well,
Gary would be paying the money.
right, so that seems like a pretty good idea that, to hold down.
Well, I think it's time for me to leave now. Did you, were you,
I'm sorry.
You know, I'm just curious if
I can't
we're
help you with that.
incorporated, then if she brings up these suits, then everybody in the county is gonna be paying for it.
Well, I can't address that because that's something that's unique to Gold Bar at this point in time, so maybe he can answer that question for you later, but I'd be happy to answer any questions from the county's
Okay,
perspective.
then
Well,
You
I've got a
bet.
question for her. What's the county budget for public records responses?
Not enough.
Not enough.
I can just tell you that.
Okay.
We're very busy with public records requests from all across the board.
Okay.
And we just don't have enough people, we don't have enough time practically to respond to all of that stuff, so.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If we unincorporate, how can we reverse our decision sometime down the road, and how soon can that happen?
I'm not an expert on that, so
No, it's-
that'd be up for your city attorney to answer, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
that's a complicated question. Probably, first guess on my part, it would be impractical because we have to incorporate under new rules instead of 1910 rules. And the rules in 2012 are more than they were in 1910.
I can tell you that a group of millionaires tried to incorporate the town of Malton in about 2006, 2007. And they wanted to form a new city there. When they found out the amount of, when they were faced with the amount of money that it would cost for the infrastructure they have to provide under new rules, under current incorporation rules, that sort of just, you know, and my home is in that area, and that just kind of started to fall apart. and it didn't take very long, and it just crumbled, and they just kind of went away, tails between their legs, I think.
Oh, scary.
It is tremendously expensive to incorporate.
In Gold Bar, for example, if we disincorporate and want to reincorporate, to be a city in the state of Washington now, you have to have a sewer system. That's about $30 million. So we'll put a jar out on the counter.
So really, the only upside to disenfranchising is getting out of all this malicious, constant litigation. That's the only upside, right?
Disagree with that.
So,
Okay.
Mayor, if I could, I think you're starting to get into your second topic.
Okay.
If there's any questions the council has for me, maybe I'll
Council,
go home and see my wife.
Okay.
Actually, no, I have no questions for you.
Okay, and I'm happy, if you think of some, email me, I'm happy to answer
Well,
them
this is
for you.
our first cut. We're just learning what the rules are,
Sure.
what they're gonna do. And then, having got a scope, we can then decide what we do in the next step. This
Well,
is
from the
not-
questions I've heard, I think they're pretty focused on the impacts that they would face. And those aren't ones that I can help you with, I think, so. Okay?
Thank you very
All
much,
right,
Gary.
thank you very much. Thanks for having me out.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. Repeat your question, and Ken can then start answering it.
So, it sounds like there's a lot of negatives to disincorporating. The only upside of it, seems to me, is that we would rid ourselves of an ongoing legal issue.
I disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is because I tend to manage the budget for the council. And we haven't sufficient revenues to cover all of our expenditures. And we haven't got the authority that the United States Congress does that allows us to print our own money. And by being required to stay within the bounds of our budget without revenue, you're going down a path of bankruptcy anyway. And so it's a matter of, so that's really what it is. You need to make a decision as to whether we're gonna continue to spend until everybody else has to pick up the tab, or we can think about what our other options are before we go bankrupt. And I don't think lawsuits are, I mean, legal expenses are huge, and they're eating up our budget, agreed. But the contract is another big budget eater, and the thing about the water is an enterprise fund, so it's self-sustaining, but we can't use that money to cover other parts of the budget. And that was one of the reasons for considering a stormwater enterprise fund, was that it would become self-sustaining and we wouldn't have to worry about that either. But the real issue is budget. And so I wouldn't say that the only benefit is to get out from under legal action. It really, what from my perspective, the real benefit is getting out from underneath the steady decline in revenue, or a steady decline in monies that we play with.
I have a
Yes,
question.
Tom.
Yeah, has anybody come up with a figure as to how much per household it would cost to take away this threat of disincorporation and resolve our impending bankruptcy? I mean, what would it take? I know
Well,
the utility tax was one, or the road. Stormwater
Yeah,
is one.
Right. So I haven't really gone down that path. What we really need here is we really need to get some business in the area that generates revenue. And once we start generating revenue, then we can start covering our expenses. Legal expenses is a huge, I mean, the attorney bills are huge here. We've spent already this year close to $50,000, and well, maybe 40,000, and we're not even halfway through the year yet. And so that's a huge burden for us. And then the law enforcement's a $230,000 a year contract, $250,000. And those are the two big issues, but we really don't generate any revenue. None, zero. We get whatever the state gives us, and that gets smaller, because they're not earning it either. And so, that's all I can say to that. I haven't gone down and figured out what it, and if I did that, I don't know whether that would just keep us for this year, and then we'd have to reconsider next year or not.
Ken, I did some numbers, I had some time to look, at least the packet that Joe kindly delivered. And our shortfall in state taxes so far is $32,600. And I know our shortfall in our budget was about 96,000. And so I went through and, okay, well, how'd we do that with skill set? And the first one I saw out of budget, out of prorated kind of thing. So I know it has its errors and that kind of stuff. But law enforcement was 44 grand over what we planned to spend. Now, again, there's a phase timing and that kind of jazz, so I don't want to say, that's the culprit, but at least we know where that portion, that's about half. And I think, please speak to that.
Oh, we pay the sheriff's contract by quarter.
Yeah.
So that's 2 quarters.
Yes.
So we basically paid half the sheriff's contract by 33% of the year, we pay 50% of the sheriff's contract.
Right.
It's the quantization of the things.
Yeah. So, and thank you, and that's what I had expected, that's what I figured out of all of this. So,
Well,
out of that
that's correct,
96K, we're still 44 of that, we could say, okay, that's the sheriff, but we kind of paid in advance.
Mhm.
Is that a fair statement? So it's not a disaster, but we're on the
Actually,
edge.
Post-pay, because we paid 1 quarter behind, so we're
We
actually,
paid the fourth quarter of 2011 and the first quarter of 2012. So we'll have the second and third for this year, and then fourth quarter for,
Like I said, we paid half the money that we're gonna be spending
yeah,
this year.
yeah.
That's what counts.
Yeah.
Whatever quarter it is, I don't care.
Okay.
We spent half of it. That's, just to get my head around it,
yeah.
And now the other was, well, I had originally, I had 30,000 or almost 31,000 in legal services. And I know that's quite a bit, that's another 25 or 30 grand higher than that actually, it's much, much higher. So then, but that's a big chunk, and we can't say that we've spent our fee for the year. In fact, we're way the hell behind,
That's right.
or it's way ahead of us.
We can't really even estimate what that's gonna be.
Even, yeah, and if we look at 2010, not 2011, maybe more appropriate, like 100K or something. And then in the finance category, we were 14 grand down. I'm just trying to parse out, the pieces. And a big chunk of that was liability, the liability insurance. Now we know we paid that ahead, that's another pay ahead kind of
But
thing.
again, we put more money in the budget than it cost.
But, and the other side, the other piece of this, which is another area, was in the area of dues, fees, memberships, and et cetera, so I don't have all of it, where we actually spent almost 6,000. And we have a total across all the different accounts, we have a total of 4,200. So, I looked at the different ones, if we made a mistake in how we budgeted that particular category.
But there's also there is one of the seminars that we paid that then we got reimbursed for. But the reimbursement goes over there, your donations, so that
Well,
affects one of the items.
That would be helpful to have that highlighted somehow,
Yeah.
so we could, in our
That's
scratch
for
calculations.
the budget discussion, the last item. I mean,
I'm sorry.
we're really talking now about the disincorporation procedures. Now, I think we've veered off into the budget, we ought to postpone this level of detail to the last thing,
I can
even
appreciate
though
that, yeah.
it is
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
basic reason.
So I think all of what I said, it's like 55 or 60K.
Yeah, it's,
For
a couple things I'll bring up when we do that.
Yeah.
But you go ahead to the disincorporation part there. Corrected notes.
animal, services and
They'll, if we disincorporate, the county guy will do it when he comes by. It comes out of Everett.
when he comes by.
Can I say something?
Yes.
The animal control, the way they work in the county, and I know this because I'm in the county, they take, if you have a dog complaint, they give you a piece of paper and tell you, fill it out, and we'll come back in a month or so and reevaluate it. But they don't do anything right away like we have here, where we put on door hangers and keep on the people until they're licensed and things like that. They don't.
County requiring dog license.
Yes, they require dog and
Cat
cat.
And
license.
yes.
County, if you don't have a dog or cat license in the county, they send you what they call a notice of order. It's a way for, the county auditor's office has discovered a way to fine you, to issue you a fine without a court proceeding. And so they send you a notice and order and they issue you a rather stiff fine for not having paid for your licenses for your animals. And so, and that's just, somebody complains that you have a dog that's barking in your yard and they look it up and nope, there's no dogs licensed at that address and they just hammer you right there.
Nuisance dogs when they get there? Next week.
Yeah, when they get there.
Yeah,
Yes, nuisance dogs, when they get their dog bites, we go.
gotcha.
So if a dog actually physically injures somebody, the sheriff's office would go, except that we don't have the resources to corral or contain the dog. So unless the dog's viciously attacking me and I can justify shooting it, there's nothing we can do with the dog, then you're back to waiting for animal control to get there. So
And that's out of Everett.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have one person for this entire area.
That's from the mouth of the Snohomish River.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got a question to ask you. You said about,
Talk loud so we can hear you, please, Leon.
I want to answer that question that you just mentioned a minute ago about getting businesses up here. I don't think anybody will come up here without no sewers, because you take like the family grocery up here, they lost a third of their property for a septic tank system. And that's why a lot of companies won't come up here, because the square footage is gonna kill them to put in a septic tank system. And it's, you know, it's very costly to lose a third of your property just to put a business in.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Without sewers, and sewers are very expensive at this point.
That is correct.
On sewers, if we became a portion of the county, would that make sewers come here faster?
No, I don't see it.
I don't think so.
So you got sewers at your place? No.
No,
I got
okay.
sewers to
No.
start up? No.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
But
My
it's just
former
matter-
residence is
it's
in
just
the
matter of
Alderman
time
area,
to
and
get
there's
that.
sewers there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sergeant Casey.
I just replied, my former residence where I moved from is in the Alderwood area, and there's just only pockets in there that have sewer. And that's only new construction. Anything built before about 1990 doesn't have it, they're all on septic.
Leon, you wanted to say something?
Yeah,
Stand up and speak loudly, please.
if the state comes out and tests the water in the river over here, and if they find any sewage running in the river, we don't have any choice, because they'll make us put sewers in.
And-
Well,
And to comment on what he was saying earlier, really, before he made this statement, it is kind of a matter of time, and I heard this earlier too. Sewers are expensive, but, and the question really was around, if we unincorporate and reincorporate, then we have to put sewers in. Well,
Yes.
so this is a criteria, and sooner or later, as an incorporated city, you're gonna be forced into doing that as well.
there's some possibility of that, yeah. That is, I can't answer that one way or the other, but it's definitely a possibility.
And that's one of the reasons I don't wanna see stormwater in it. Because if you're gonna put curbs and gutters and storm sewer in a year or two down the road, and if you decide to go to sewers, they're gonna have to dig up all that crap and redo it, and that's double the cost.
My guess, Leon, is that's the difference between $20 and $30 million is base sewer system is about $20 million for a small town. But I figure we have another 10 by the time you dig up everything and put it back together. So, yes, ma'am.
Do we even have a spot anymore to build a sewage plant?
I don't think so. I know, Sultan just built the sewage plant, and then they had to expand it for future growth, because you gotta have the sewer plant before the growth comes, and of course, they've been, I think, dinged twice for dumping sewage into the river. And Arlington and Snohomish has spent tons of money to keep from dumping sewage into the river. So, again, it's a big thing happening. And as long as septic systems are maintained and we keep the number of them under control, which was one of the things when the UGA got rejected, one of the county analysis was that the additional septic systems would be kicking the aquifer up into an acceptable contamination range. So, you can go for a long time in septic systems, but they have to be maintained and repaired, and, but that doesn't mean someday there will be new rules coming out of that septic. Bob Avery.
We had, we're up at her niece's, her son's birthday, and her husband runs all the waste treatment plants up in that area up around our. And I was asking him about it. Why don't we apply for USDA grants for putting the sewer in? Sultan's getting money for the second one going in there. Why can't we apply for it?
They're getting money to conform to standards, is my understanding. We took a look at that, and they said there is no money for putting one in. There is money for upgrading it.
What, USDA said that?
Is what, and that was a brief evaluation we made some time ago, and we weren't planning on taking any steps toward it and didn't pursue it further. And I'm not sure there are grants to put in a new sewer system. There may be loans.
Oh, grant and loan, that, because they'll grant you for your initial study.
Yeah, they may.
And then they'll come back and they'll do loans and grants.
Yeah, that's what we do at the reservoir, is we got a grant for part of it and a loan for the rest. Loans you have to pay back.
Right.
So,
But if you have sewer, that means you can expand and bring in more businesses.
Could be. I mean, it's not a magic bullet, I don't think. You gotta have the customer's base, you have to have the product to offer them.
All true.
And
Cause it's, there's no harm in checking USDA and find out if we can get somebody.
that's a Sultan experience. And don't have a hiccup in the middle, because you're now paying for something you're not gonna use for the next 10 years.
Right.
There was, down in Sultan down there, they've done their sewage plant a couple of times, and they extended the sewer main all the way up to where McDonald's is at,
Yep.
and there's 44 acres in there is up for sale. But they can't build on it because the sewage plant, the one what Sultan has, isn't big enough to handle all of that 44 acres. If they put a strip mall in there, or they put condominiums in there, the plant cannot handle that whole overload. And
They're getting ready to upgrade that plant.
Yeah, they upgraded it 2 or 3 times.
Right, they're getting ready to upgrade it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a whole separate big subject, so,
I have
let's,
one
yes,
quickie.
ma'am.
Elementary school, is it affected?
No,
Yes,
yes, it is. Why is it, how's it?
read the rules.
Oh, okay, let's run through
Okay.
the steps to do it, and then cause we're going into massive stuff that needs studying in details, okay. Scroll on down, basically, we cover the stuff everybody knows, and, okay, here's the steps for disincorporation. 50% of the voters in the city sign a petition saying we want to disincorporate, that's one way to do it. And then, once they do that, it goes to a vote. Or, the city council says, hey, we're gonna go to a vote on disincorporation. And they vote, they pass, and then it goes out for an election, majority, and it changes. Okay, and then this, here's the effect of
So
this.
either way, there has to be an election.
There has to be an election. I misread it the
Right.
first time. I thought 3 council members voted, it's over with.
No.
I didn't know it was
It's
wrong.
up to the residents.
Yeah. And then what happened, a receiver is placed in, and once the receiver shows up, all the previous elected officials are gone. Existing contracts, we don't really have any existing contracts in those. Streets. Says here, the state takes over the streets, and they do that until somebody takes over the property, which would be the county. And then the receiver comes in, sells off everything, pays off any lawful claims, and then any money that's left over goes to the school system. So it's very straightforward on how to do it. You can scroll down a little more. Okay, that's it. So,
And the receiver is the county.
the receiver is someone assigned, like a bankruptcy judge or something, whose job is to close out the accounts.
Probably be an escrow or something
Yeah,
similar.
it's sell the building, sell the dump truck,
Okay, all right.
everything like that.
The building.
Yep, everything.
Well, that brings up an issue, what about snow clearance?
Well, now what he said, I didn't get that reading it. In lieu of city property taxes, you pay a county road tax, which says it goes for capital projects. But he said that would include snow plowing, so you might, and topping, so we might actually get better street work than we have now.
1996, snowstorm, I waited for 3 days for it.
Okay, so
Only down on arterial.
are you saying that Gary was pumping services? The people who live in the county have not been that enthused about the county road services.
So, have you, I've never lived in a town that's been not a town. Have you talked to anybody in startup? Do they like their, not being a city?
I think they do, but look at the number of people in startup and the size properties they have. That's pure rural. I mean, they're all living on 5 to 20 acres.
I will answer your question.
No, that's right, there's one
I
little
know
strip
one
there.
individual who lives in Startup, who is unhappy with the police protection district. That's the extent to which I can answer your question.
Oh, that's right, but there's that little downtown area, yeah.
It's just
I lived in Woodinville when it was unincorporated county. And about 3 years after we moved in there, it became a city. And I've never seen my taxes go so crazy. I felt like I had very little say in what was going on. It just, and the town just blossomed and grew way out of control. So I didn't see, I voted against becoming part of a private city. And I wish it would have stayed that way. But that was my own personal experience in Woodinville.
Yeah, well, the problem all that west side stuff has is the number of people living there.
And you know, it wasn't until I moved out here that I got my streets swept. You know, I paid this exorbitant amount of property tax and city services in Woodinville, and was just blown away the day the street sweeper went in front of my house. And they did it every week.
As they did it semi-annual in Woodinville.
Yeah.
But look at the revenue
If you
that
were
they
lucky.
got down in Woodinville. Look at the business
Oh, I
they
know,
got
yeah,
down there.
but
Well,
that's a different
that's
thing.
the, after they've grown, yeah,
Mhm.
so. But, okay, but that's, you know, take a look at Vision 2040, and it's, you know, previous, there were people who were gonna go up the road and live, and 2040 says we're gonna stack them up high around I-5. And, which is simply because you can combine services like that, which is, there's difference, there's rural and there's urban, and we're not urban, and we're not quite rural either. Yes, sir.
Is there a way under micromanagement that the city can save itself? I mean, cause I know we're talking about this, but obviously we're on track for like a bankruptcy or something, obviously. Is there a way to micromanagement to save it? That would be my one question.
Mr. Reed?
say yes.
Huh?
Absolutely, I think we can say.
Okay, now I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, two topics is the lawsuit from some group of people. And my question is this, a city can sue and be sued, right? City can't sue,
Yes, the city can.
you're a private
can
entity,
sue.
as a city, you're a private entity.
That's correct. The city
So-
can sue and be sued.
Okay, let me ask this then. If you're being harassed and it's causing this piecemeal litigation, a lawyer can step up and actually stop that from happening, even under the public access, even though it's a free access. But when it becomes a form of harassment, the city can actually stop that.
Sorry, I don't believe that's inside the RCW 4256. The
For
city,
under public access.
it's not public, it's Public Records Act.
Okay, which I'm just calling it public access.
Okay.
Sure.
No, but, no, the Senate had a chance to make that statement this last session and they declined.
And even under like a lawsuit, if it's a
I
continuous
use
one?
that you can't sue people for using the Public Records Act.
No, I'm saying if you're being sued continuously, I heard people say, I don't know, but I'm hearing everybody saying that you guys are being sued over and over, is that it's piecemeal litigation and you should be able to stop that. I would think so.
We're not
I
gonna
mean,
go
it would
into
be up to you, is the
legal discussions.
Sure, I'm just bringing that up as a
I know,
topic, because
I understand.
the
It's
legal counsel's
understood.
not here, obviously.
And it's, and we have defended and come back where it's appropriate.
Well, I hear everybody saying about a group of people and the sheriff's bill, so I didn't know if those two were the major cost that could be.
Sheriff's been the same cost for 4 or 5 years now.
Sure.
And I really, the presence here, I've been here since 2006, and I really think I see a dramatic difference in the law enforcement effect of having these guys here.
Sure,
Because-
I know in Everett, they cleaned up that whole town up there, and it used to be crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, I think, I'm not an old timer,
Sure.
but I do have the impression that there is a dramatic improvement in reduction of crime, getting rid of meth houses and all that other stuff over what we had when I first came here.
Sure.
That's for sure. Well, I just want to say something quickly. Every pro and con that he mentioned, I wrote down.
Okay.
There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. There's 9 cons and 3 pros to disincorporate. And each one of the cons directly affects its citizens. It's, the sheriff's contract, like the mayor said, 4 to 5 years, maybe even longer. But you can't forget where you used to live. You live in Gold Bar, you lived in Gold Bar 6 years ago. But look at Gold Bar 6 years ago and look at Gold Bar today. We're not a perfect city. There's not any perfect cities out there. You're always gonna have drugs, you're always gonna have crime anywhere you go. But the level of drugs and crime that used to be in Gold Bar to the level it is today is black and white. And, if folks wanna disincorporate, they need to think about the effects, not just in law enforcement. But people are not gonna forget that, Gold Bar's out there. There's a lot of places to go and hide and do these things like they used to do.
No, I absolutely, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I absolutely believe, I have a past, and
Yeah.
a lot of people know that, and I think that drug dealers and all that, they're gonna move where the sheriffs aren't.
Absolutely, that's my.
And when it becomes unincorporated, you're gonna get that back, absolutely.
Yes.
Because you're gonna be either gonna, if you're out there, you can get places on these side roads and stuff, that's where they're gonna go. They're gonna go where the sheriff isn't. So I
Right.
absolutely believe that. I believe
Right. But, that's not the only con. And if we sit back and we look at the effects that it's gonna have on everybody, I think it's worth doing everything we can to save the city. We're talking about disincorporating, but we're not talking about anything we can do to save the city.
That's what I want to hear.
Well, that's why I'm sitting back here just keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Well, do
Because
we-
that's my motivation, not disincorporation.
I think we covered, because what we did, the question was brought up about disincorporating. So we've got a first cut of what the services would be if we weren't an incorporated city. we have the procedures to take to start disincorporating. So now we know that it's probably not worth much time. We've spent almost an hour on this, and we're not gonna refine it any more than what we said. So, yes, sir, Bob Maker.
Okay, I keep hearing about this bankruptcy. How close is the city to going bankrupt?
We're gonna cover the budget. I'm not gonna make any predictions about it, right now.
Because if you go bankrupt, that's pretty much, you're out of business anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the question. That wasn't brought up. If we continue on the path we're on, we're going bankrupt. That's a rough landing and very expensive. So is it better, basically cut your losses and disincorporate and take what comes? That's the discussion that came out, and that's what we ended up in.
Yeah, that's why I was asking how close we were. Because once you're bankrupt,
I-
game's over.
I don't wanna, well, it's not over, but it's tough. I don't wanna talk, I'm not in a position that I
Okay.
can give a number yet.
I just thought I'd
Can I
ask.
say something to
Yeah.
that? I think if you've got any knowledge of when this may happen, maybe you should share it. Because you've got people out here that are legitimately concerned.
Okay,
And if you come up to us in a month from now and say, oh, we're going bankrupt in 6 months, you know, that's another month that we could have had to try to save the
I'll give you the
city.
Joe Beaver's
Joe
projection.
Beaver's prediction.
We'll be bankrupt end of the year. And that's it. I can't get any simpler than that. Yes, sir.
Can we save it? Is there any way to micromanagement to save it? Would that be good for you?
Well, yeah, it would probably be for me. I really, I guess I haven't weighed in on that real heavily. What I do know is that we rely on the state to provide the funds that we use, and the state funding is reduced. And so we reduced our budget going into the year with the expectation that it would be reduced. But in our particular case, what is unestimatable is our expense side. Typically, in business, you have fixed expenses, and then you don't know what your income's gonna be. But in our case, we kind of know what our income is, but we don't have any control over our expenses. And unless you can make the two balance, that's, and so what I will say is that we made an adjustment to the budget, about 2 meetings ago, to cover legal expenses. And we had certain reserves when we started the year, and the reserves were right around the order of 59,000, 60,000. We changed our budget to allow us to spend 30,000 more. And so,
On the legal budget?
well, it was because we had legal bills.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the point is that we really can't do that again. And so we really don't have any room to move.
But is there a way to micromanagement to cut?
We're gonna hit the
Okay,
budget
never mind. Okay,
later.
I'm getting out of there. Okay,
We're
sorry.
not gonna be able to answer that tonight.
Okay.
That's a hard slog. Be glad to give you the budget projections.
What I
Talk
have,
about it.
what I have asked about is if there's anything that we can, like the water enterprise, or any other enterprise, or any other assets that we could sell off to create revenue. I've looked at that. We've not come to any agreement on that. We haven't even discussed it as a council.
Sure, I know there's not a one answer panacea to
Yeah.
answer all
And
that.
when it comes to the other huge expenditure, which would be